Okay, welcome everyone. As we are dedicated by A.B. Spry, Nachas from all his children, and by Michal Avram, that everybody should finish Shas with Havana and Gesund. We welcome in Saba and Mark Frankel and Dr. Guy and Irving Fishbaum, Baruch Ian, Shelley Zeitlin, Yitzi Fuchs, Berish Gesseman, Shalom Fogel, Michal, Shimon Klein, Nachman Chapler, Aaron Swade, Yitzi Muller, Naftali Javelin, Ray Barbach, Rabbi Kranz, Ilya Shutman, Richard Rosenzweig, David Helfgott on Kalalashin, and here in Shul we have Gedalia Engel and Reb Kramer, Reb Rosenberg, Reb Avram Zepkowitz, Michal Avram, and Ruvain Shanit. We are holding on the top line of Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph as we are discussing whether Simonim are Daraisa or Drabanan. And we said that, well, the way it works is that the one who lost it is happy it should be returned. So the Gemara says, Elahad is nan, that which we learned in the Mishnah, Matzah Sachrich Shel Shtaros. If you find a roll of documents, a Agudah Shel Shtaros, or a bundle of documents, Harizeh Yarzer, you could return it to the one who gives the siman. We said that there were simanim, either they were, one was rolled and then another one was rolled on top of that, or a bundle is where you put all three on top of each other and roll them together. But Hakanami, the Nichalei L'Loiva, is the debtor pleased La'adure Leila Milva. Could you ever say that? Ela Amarava Simonim Daraisa. Now the Gemara says that a siman has a biblical origin. Why? It should be by you until your brother seeks it out. So the Gemara says, well, duh. You're not going to return it to him before he seeks it out. Says the Gemara, if before he seeks it out, how can you return it to him? You don't know who he is. You should do an investigation whether he's a crook or not. How are you going to do the determination? La b'simonim. That means to ask him, do you have proof? Shmami, no, that simonim are daraisa. Amar Rava. Now Rava follows it up with an odd follow-up. Im tim tzalaimer simonim daraisa. If you'll say that simonim are biblical. So the Gemara says, what do you mean im tim tzalaimer? We just proved it. Im tim tzalaimer, what do you mean if you say? Ha-pasha le simonim daraisa. We just proved it from a pasuk. Says the Gemara, well, Rava still is of the belief that the pasuk is not mukhrach, it's not definite, because mishum deikal ameima kedeshaninan, we could say, like we answered earlier, that the way you check him up is he has to bring witnesses that it's his, and maybe it's not simonim. But if you say simonim are daraisa, if you say simonim adaraisa, simonim v'simonim. Let's say Mark brings a simon and Shelley brings a simon. So then yaniach, then I don't give it to either of them. I have to wait until Elio comes. Let's say simonim v'edim. Let's say Shelley gives a simon, but Mark brings witnesses. Oh, that's no question that witnesses trump simonim. You're not saying the Bala Edim. We give it to Mark, who has witnesses. Simonim v'simonim v'eid echad. Oh, this is an interesting question. Mark provides a simon. Shelley provides a simon. But Mark also has one witness. Says the Gemara, Mark's one witness is not worth a fig, because by mumminess, by money, ein davar shebamamim pachas mishnayim. By monetary matters, you need two witnesses. So one witness is not worth anything. Eid echad commando lesadami. And therefore, v'yaniach, again, I would have to keep it until Eliyahu Hanavi comes and makes the determination. Eidei ariga v'eidei nefila. Mark has witnesses that he wove the garment. But Shelley has witnesses that it fell from him. Now this is obvious. We give it to Shelley. Tinasa nefila. Because it's very possible that Mark wove it, but then he sold it to Shelley. The Amrina and Zavune Zavna, Mark, maybe he did weave it, but he sold it to Shelley, and it fell from Shelley. Now here's an interesting one. Midas Arkai Midas Rachbai. If one gives the measure of its length, and one gives the measure of its width. So now here, the length is not what length usually means. It's not the height of the person. Here, like a talus, the garment is wrapped around the person. So the length is what's wrapped around the person. That's harder to gauge than the width, where it's just we see the width as the dimension of the person's height. So if Mark provides the length, that would be harder to estimate than the width. And therefore we give it to Mark. Midas Arkai, Midas Rachbai, Tinasin, Midas Arkai. We give it to Mark, who gives the better measurement. The Midas Rachbai, because the width, Shiurei Kamashar, it could be that Shelley estimated it Kad Machzalei Mara while Mark was wearing it. Kad Machzalei Mara v'kai. Or Midas Arkai, but the length, which is wrapped around the girth, so it's not all visible, so there, that's harder, like Mishtarla. Now here, this is an interesting one. Mark gives Midas Arkai and Midas Rachbai. Mark gives the separate measurements of the length and the separate measurements of the width. Shelley gives Midas Gamav. Shelley gives the total measurements of the garment, but not the breakdown of the length and the width. Now, Midas Gamav is a very strange usage of the Greek letter gamma, which is like an L, which means that it's giving the two perpendicular measurements as a total. So since Mark knows precisely what was the length and what was the width, and Shelley only knows the total, so we give it to Mark, who seems to have more information about the garment. So you know, however, if Mark knows Midas Arkai and Midas Rachbai, if Mark knows the length and the width, but Shelley knows Midas Mishkalois of the weight, now the length and the width, you could, if you're a sharpster, you could try to figure it out by vision. But there's no way you could have information about the weight. So therefore, if Shelley knows the weight, we give it to Shelley. Hu Aimer Simoni Aget, if he provides you with a simon of the get, Vihi Aimeres Simoni Aget. So she says there's a hole next to the letter, and he says there's a hole next to the letter. Yinas and law. We give it to her. Because how would she know it? He would know it because before he gave it to her, he had it. But since she never had it, unless he gave it to her, if she knows a specific siman, we award it to her. So the Gemara says, but b'mai, if it's just outer dimensions, the length and the width, maybe she saw it while he was holding it. Ella, it means an internal siman, nekav yesh by b'tzad is plaining, that there's a cigar hole next to the gimel. Hu aimer simani achot, v'hi aimer simani achot. If it was tied with a ribbon, and he gives the siman of the ribbon, and she gives the siman of the ribbon, you're not saying, look. So again, what kind of a siman? If it was white or if it was red, the fact that she knows it doesn't mean anything. Maybe she saw it by him. Maybe while he was holding it, she saw it. It means that she knows the dimensions. She knows the dimensions. It must be that he gave it to her. If he says it was in a skin canteen, and she says it was a skin canteen, you're not saying, look, we give it back to him. Why? Because the fact that she knows it's in a skin canteen, she knows that he keeps everything in a skin canteen. My timer made the yoda the kol mad whatever he has b'chafisa the manachle. Now the Ritva over here, as the art scroll brings down a very interesting Ritva over here, the Ritva says, but why do we return it back to him? Because if it was by her, he would not say that it was in a chafisa. Because a woman, a get is very valuable to her. Because with that, she could prove that she could remarry. She would not keep such a important document in the chafisa. Now, we go to the next phase of this parak, and that is how long, if let's say Mark found a lost article, so it's a responsibility. How long does he have to continue to announce the lost article and try to return it? We're going to see that. We're going to learn tonight there's a lot of responsibilities in finding a lost article. Marshall, we were just talking about responsible people. People that come here on time. Yeah. People that never say when they're here, is the shir going to start on time? People that never talk that way. Never. It's good to see you, Marshall. Where are you?
Sitting in a chair.
You're not home, are you?
I am not.
No. It's an interesting background.
2:15. They didn't give me 2:08, unfortunately. I tried.
Are you far? Are you near?
I'm here. What is that, far or near?
I'm saying.
I'm in Nashville.
In Tennessee?
Yes.
How far is that from Chicago?
About 9 hours.
Oh, wow. So are you there for Shabbos?
No.
No. Okay. So Marshall is coming live from Tennessee. Now, and for enough money, he'll sing us some country songs. Now.
Country Yashki and the Fish.
Vad Mosai Chayev Lahachris. We're at the Mishnah in the middle of the page on Daf Chav Ches Amud Aleph. So Vad Mosai Chayev Lahachris, for how long does Mark have to announce what he found? Ad Kidei Sheyevod B'Ishchenav. Until the neighbors find out about it. Now the Gemara is going to ask, whose neighbors? Divrei Meir. Rabbi Yehuda says Shalosh regalim. In those days, the Yidden would go up Aliyah l'regel each Yom Tov. All males would go up to the base of English. But since it wouldn't be enough one, because maybe somebody was sick, wasn't strong enough to go, so he has to announce it for 3 regalim. And then after the last regal, he has to wait around. V'achar regal, he has to wait around. Achar regal achron shiva yomim, he has to wait around 7 days. Kedei sheyelech lebeisai shloisha, so that the person could get to his house 3 days. V'yachzer, to see if he's missing it. V'yachzer shloisha, and return 3 days, and then find him. The yakriz yom echad, and declare, I'm the one that lost it, and find Mark. Now it says that Rameir says until the neighbors find out about it. Tana shcheinei aveda, the neighbors of the lost article. My shcheinei aveda, ilay mishcheinim de bal aveda. Let's say Ruvain is the one that lost it, so until Ruvain's neighbors find out about it, says the Gemara, how does Mark know Ruvain, that's Ruvain's neighbors? How does Mark know? He doesn't know who lost it. Says the Gemara, if Mark knows that it's Ruvain's, so he doesn't know who the neighbors of the Balaveda is. Rather, it means until the neighbors of the area where Mark found it finds out about it. So if Mark found it in Scranton, so the neighbors in Scranton have to find out about it. Rabbi Yehuda says 3 regalim. Raminu, the Gemara says, here it says that he has to wait after the last Yom Tov 3 days for the people that live the furthest. They should be able to get home 3 days. 3 days? In Masechtas Tanis it says 15 days. Raminu, b'shloisha b'marcheshvan, on the 3rd of the Marcheshvan, shoylin esagsham. That's where you start saying the same Talamat Levracha, because the first rain of the Yorah falls in the 3rd day of Marcheshvan. Rabbi Gamliel Aimer b'zayin bay. Rabbi Kiva says you don't ask for rain until the 7th of Marcheshvan, 15 days after Sukkot. Because we don't want to ask for rain until the Oile Regalim get home. They shouldn't be caught in the downpour. Tesvav Yom Achar Chag, 15 days after Sukkot, Kedei Shiyagia Achron Sheberetz Yisrael, that those that are furthest away of Eretz Yisrael should get home to their home near Nahar Pras, near the Euphrates. So what do you mean 3 days? You see, it takes 15 days. Rabbi Yosef Lekasha kan b'mikdash rishon kan b'mikdash sheni. One is by the first temple, one is by the second temple. In the first temple, where there were a lot of Yidden, b'mikdash rishon the Nefisha Yisrael Tuva Dichsiv B'hu, it says about them Yehuda v'Yisrael Rabim Kechol Asher Alayam, that there were many like the sand by the sea, l'roiv, in multitude. There you need 15 days. B'ainan kulei hai. B'mikdash sheni, the second temple, the whole congregation was only Arba Ribui, 40,000, Arba Ria Alafim, 40,000, Shal Shmeis Rishishim, 40,360. It's kind of sobering, because I'm pretty sure we have a lot more than 40,360 people in Lakewood. Right? There's no question about that, no? No question about it. I mean, they say that in the Catskills in the summer, there's over 250,000 from a Yidden in the Catskills. That's a lot of people. Amalei Abaya. So Abaya says this doesn't work. Because even though in the second temple there were relatively few people, but they still lived in the original towns. They were still far flung. V'aksiv vayeshuvu hakahanim v'aleviim, and the priest and the Leviim, v'ameshorim, the singers, v'ashoyarim, and the porters, the carriers, v'kol Yisrael ba'areim. And they lived in their cities. The cave in the Hachihu says, well, we're going to explain just the opposite. Ipcha Mistavra. Mikdash Rishon, the Nefisha Yisrael Tuva, there was so many Yidden. The Mitzavis Alma, it was a huge crowd of there was transportation day and night, and therefore it only took 3 days to get home. Make the sheni that there were so few people. There weren't so many people. There wasn't a huge crowd. The transportation was sparse. You needed 15 days. You're right. For some people, it would take 15 days. But we can't ask Mark to stay there 15 days. I mean, Mark has a business to run. Can't ask him to stay more than 3 days. They only made him stay 7 days. Ravina. Now here the question is, what does Mark announce? Ravina, Shmamina ki machris glima machris. That he announces that he found a garment. He just said, I found a lost article. Then you should give an extra day for the person to get home and go through his whole house and see if he's missing anything. You should add another day for him to go through all his utensils and see if anything is missing. Well, he says that he found a cloak, Shmamina. Rav Amano. That all we tell him is that, he found something. You should give a person more time. Still, they can't put such a burden on Mark. Tan Rabbana. Just getting underway on a beautiful Wednesday evening. We want to remind everybody, we did the Mishnah Yomis already, because tonight we have a special Chumash here, and everybody is invited. It's going to be about Parshas Parah. Actually, the topic is Parshas Parah and the Chametz connection. It's a very, very interesting shir.
It's a hamburger sandwich, right?
It's a very interesting shir. If I would know better, I would think that we're getting noise from Tennessee. The home of the noisemakers. There he is. Wow, now you look better. Says the Gemara, the Tanur Rabbanan. Regel Rishon, when it's the first, remember we said Mark has to announce it for 3 festivals. Regel Rishon, I'm a Regel Rishon. He says the first festival. Regel Sheni, I'm a Regel Sheni. Regel Shlishi, the last one, I'm a Stam. Now this is a beautiful example of less is more. Because the Gemara says, why doesn't he say Regel Shlishi? It's the last time. Amai Lema Regel Shlishi. Says the Gemara, you know what? We're afraid if he says anything more, he might say by accident the second regel. We're afraid, as we welcome in Eli for our 27th Zoomer of the evening, we're afraid so the Gemara says then when he says Regel Sheni, why aren't you afraid that he might switch it with Regel Rishon? Regel Sheni Nami, he might switch it with Regel Rishon. Asi L'chlufe Barishon. We're not worried about that because there's still a make-up the next Regel. Hakasi Regel Shlishi. Tan Rabbanan, Berishayna, initially, Kol Mi Shemotza Aveda, whoever found a lost article, or Yamachris or Le'ashol Regalim, he would announce it for 3 regalim, v'achar regel akron, and after the last festival, he would sit around Shiva Yomim, Kadei Shiel Shloisha, in order that the person should go home up to 3 days, v'yazah Shloisha, v'yachris Yom Echad, and look for Mark. Mishachar Beis HaMikdash, once the Beis HaMikdash was destroyed, it should be rebuilt speedily in our day. His skinu shir machrizim about the knesias and about the midrashas. They enacted that he should announce it in the synagogues and the study halls in the area that he found it. Umishirabu ha'anosim, but when the anosim, these were people that said you got to turn it over to the government. Umishirabu ha'anosim, and when those who would force the matter increased, his skinu shi'amedin l'shcheinav l'miyadav, that Mark should inform his neighbors and his friends, v'daya, and that's enough. Says the Gemara, Maimi shirabu ha'anosim. What does it mean when they're increased, those that would force? The Amar Avedas l'malka. You say that the lost article goes to the government, goes to the crown. Rabbi Ami Ashkech Udya de Dinrei. Rabbi Ami found a vessel full of coins. Chazyahu Barnash, a guy that noticed it, saw the kamirsis, that he saw that Rabbi Ami was nervous, that this guy noticed it. So this guy was a Roman. Amalei zil shkola nafshech. He said, don't worry, you can take it for yourself. The la parsoyana, we're not of the Persian persuasion, the Imrei Avidasa, the Malka, that lost articles go to the crown. Tan Rabbanan, Evan Toyin Hoysab Yerushalayim. There was a stone where people who had claims would come to it. It was a lost and found. Kol Misha Ovdole Aveda Niftan Lasham. Whoever lost something would go there. The Kol Misha Motza Aveda Niftan Lasham. And whoever found something would go there. Ze Oimedo Machriz. The person that found it would make an announcement. The Ze Oimed V'naisin Simanim. The owner would come and give Simanim. V'noidla. And he would take it. V'zui Shishaninu. And this is what it says in Mesechtes Tanis. After Chuni Hama'agel made it rain so much that they asked him to stop the rain, he said, we don't ask Hashem to stop bracha unless Tzuru'im Nimchas Even HaTayim. If the Even HaTayim dissolved. What he meant to say is just like the Even HaTayim won't dissolve, we don't ask Hashem to stop giving bracha. Now, Amaris Aveda, Mark announced that he found an article, and Shelley comes and says what it is. V'lo yamar simoneha, but he didn't give any simonim. Lo yitin lo. The Mark shouldn't give it to him. V'Ramai, a trickster who has a reputation of being a trickster, even if he gives the simonim, lo yitin lo. Shenemar adroish achicha yisai. Now, literally, this means until your brother seeks it out. But if remember, we said, of course, you're not going to give it to him before he seeks it out. But it means until you investigate if he's a trickster or not. If he's a trickster, you don't give it to him, even if he gives a simon. Now, excuse me. Here we go back to the question of what Mark announces. Does he announce that he found something? Or does he announce that he found a piece of clothing? So Itmar Rav Yehuda Amar Avedasa Machlas, that Mark just says, I found something. Rav Nachman Amar Glima Machris. So it just says, he says, he's more specific, I found a cloak. Rav Yehuda Amar Avedasa Machris. Rav Yehuda says, I found a lost article. The Amar Glima Machris, because if he says, I found a cloak, we're afraid for a trickster. You see, it's very hard for a person to be a trickster if you don't say what you found. But if he said a lost article, well, maybe Marshall saw that somebody was missing his jacket, and he'll try to, pick up somebody else's jacket. What do you think he's running away to Nashville for? The Gemara says, he has, I don't even think there's extradition to Nashville. Right?
Only for stolen jackets.
Do they even allow Frankfurters in Nashville?
There are a bunch of hot dogs in the city. Yes, they do.
There actually is a place called Nashville. I was wondering about that.
They call it Smashville here, but yeah.
So, Rav Nachman Amaglima Machris, L'Ramai Loi Chayshinan. We're not worried about a trickster. Tim Kain L'Dav Safe. I mean, what trickster? The guy has to provide a simon. I mean, how much are you going to worry? Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Omeres Aveda, V'loi Omeres Simoneha. If Marshall says the lost article, but he doesn't give it simonim, Harizelo Yitinlai. So obviously he had to say something. So that works according to the opinion that you just say, that Mark just says, I found something. So that Mark says, I found a lost article. So the Mishnah is telling us that even if Marshall says it was a shirt, that's not enough. Even though he says it's a shirt, if he doesn't have any simanim, but if Mark says he found a shirt, so obviously if Marshall says it was a shirt, we're not going to return it. If Mark says I found a shirt, and Marshall says I lost the shirt, is there any chiddush that if he doesn't give simanim, we're not going to return it to him? No, I'm Rav Safra. Mark says that I found a shirt. Amar iu glima, v'amar iu simanim. Marshall says a shirt, and he says, listen to this, listen to Marshall's big simon. He says it was a white shirt in Lakewood. He says it was a white shirt with buttons. Right? Yeah, right. It doesn't give anything distinctive at all. He says it was a white shirt, or he says it was a shirt with a collar. Anyway, Va'aramai, and a trickster, Afal Pisha Omar es Simoneha, even if he says Simonim, Arizelo Yitinlai. Tanraban Brishaina, Kol Misha Avdolei Aveda. Initially, whoever lost a lost article, or a nice in Simonem, he would give a distinctive simon, V'naidlai. However, Mishirab Rabbo Aramayim, when the tricksters abound, Hiskinu Shi'aimrim Lai, they would tell the person, say V'havei Eidim, the Lav Ramayat, bring character witnesses. Right? Notice that Marshall just got very quiet. Bring character witnesses.
That's because I'm a character.
Yeah, bring character witnesses. V'tel. You got to hear this story. Talk about people not articulating the right way. the father of Rav Papa was obviously a very fine man, lost a donkey. V'ashkechua, somebody who didn't know him found it. Also, the Kami de Rabba bar Rav Huna. So, Rav Papa, the father of Rav Papa, wanted to collect it. Amalei, so he said to him, Zil Aisei Sadeh, go provide witnesses. The Lav Ramayat, that you're not a trickster, that you're a up and up fellow. Vitel. So Ozil Aisei Sadeh, he went and brought a character witnesses. Amalahu, so he said to them, Yadisan Bey de Ramayu, do you know about him if he's a Ramai? So they meant, yes, we know that he's not. But the literal question was, do you know about him if he's a Ramai? And they said, yes. Amalayin. Now that sounds like he is a Ramai. Amalahu. So the father of Papa said to the witnesses incredulously, Ano Rama Ana? Am I a trickster? Amrulei Anan Lav Ramayat Kamri. We meant we know about you, and that you're not a Rama. But that's not what they said. Now that, while that might sound funny, it's not so funny. Because once you give testimony in court, you can't change your testimony. It says, Kevin Shehigid, Shuvein Echayzer Umagid. However, Rabbi Rav Huna saved the day. Amar Rabbi Rav Huna, Mistaver loy maisi in shechayv l'nafshe. Since the father of Papa brought these witnesses, they're probably coming to say in his defense. So therefore, it was just that we misunderstood what they said, and therefore they could correct what they meant. Now here comes the question. Obviously, if Mark finds something, we don't expect him to be out of pocket for taking care of what he found. So if he finds an animal, if he's going to have to keep the animal and feed it and shelter it, then, he's going to be out of a lot of money. So we'll see. The way it works is as follows. In the event that Mark finds an animal that is too expensive to keep, he could sell the animal and keep the money. But that's not preferable, because the owner would rather get back his animal. So if it was an animal that could work, and its work will pay for its keep, so then Mark shouldn't sell it. He should have its work, and the work will pay for its keep. So let's see that inside the Mishnah. Kol davar she'oisa v'yoichel, anything that Mark finds, and it will work and pay for its keep. Yasa v'yoichel, it should work and pay for its keep. Kol davar she'ein oisa v'yoichel yimkar, he could sell. Shenemar v'ashivoisaloi. See, if Mark is going to have to take care of it, so then he's going to develop a tab, which the owner is going to have to pay him, and then he won't be returning the lost article to him. He'll be returning him just a loss. So we learn Rashi Vaiselai, you should return it to him. Re'ei heich teshivenu. You should see how you could do it, that you'll be returning him a value, and not you'll be returning him a debit. Ma'yeh b'damim. If he sells it, what's his responsibility with the money? Reb Tarfanaimi yishtamish b'hem. He could use the money. In other words, in the meantime, he could invest the money. Lefikach, since he's benefiting from it, he becomes a shomer sacher, a paid watchman, and therefore, im avdu, if the money gets lost, Mark is responsible. Rabbi Kiva, he can't invest the money. He has to put it away and just keep it for the owner. Lefikach im avdu ein chayiv b'achriyusan. If it gets lost, he's not responsible, because then he's not a paid watchman. Over here, the Nachlas Moshe says a very obvious thing, that if you're going to sell the item, if Mark sells the item, he better write down in a notebook the simonim of the item. Because otherwise, how will the owner ever be able to prove that it was his donkey? Or Mark has the money. So he writes down the simonim so that when the owner says, yeah, my donkey had a slash on its left calf, so then he will know that this is the owner. Now, says the Gemara, does Mark have to take care of this animal forever? 16 years he's taking care of the animal. Says the Gemara, La'ilam, Rav Nachman Amishmol ad Yud Beis Chodesh. He has to take care of it 1 year. Tanya Amihachi, Kol Davar She'oisa V'Oichel. It takes care of its keep, Kegain Para V'Chamar, a cow, a donkey. Metapel Behem ad Yud Beis Chodesh. He has to take care of it 12 months. Mekan Ve'elech Sham Demehem. He evaluates how much it's worth. He sells it. Umanichan. Agolim Usyachim, calves and foals. Metapel Behem Shloisha Chadashim. He only has to trouble with them 3 months. Mekan Ve'elech Sham Demehem Umanichan. Avozim Tarnagolim, geese and chicken, Metapel Behem only Shloishim Yom, 30 days. Mekan Ve'elech Sham Demehem Umanichan. Amar Rav Nachman Yitzchak, no. A chicken, you should keep a year, because its eggs pay for its keep. Tarnagolos Kebehei Magasa. Tanya Nami Hoki, about Tarnagolos. Tarnagolos Ubehei Magasa, a chicken, or large livestock, like a cow, like a donkey. Metapel Behem Shnei Moisel Chodesh, 12 months. Mekan Ve'elech. Afterwards, Sham Demeim, he evaluates the money, and Maniachim puts the money aside. Agolin Usyachim, Metapel Behem Lamed Yom. Now this is not like we said before, we said 3 months. Here we say 30 days. Mekan Ve'el Sham Demeim Maniachim. Avozim Tarnagolim V'Kol Davar Shetipulei Meruba. That has a lot of trouble to take care of it. Shetipulei Meruba Mischaroi. That trouble is more than its profit. Netapel Behem Shloisha Yomim, 3 days. Mekan Ve'el Sham Demeim Umanichan. So here we have a stira, the calves and the fold. Earlier we learned 3 months, and now it says 30 days. So Kasha Agolim Misyachim, Agolim Misyachim. And also Avozim Tarnagolim, Avozim Tarnagolim. Geese and chicken. Earlier we said it's 3 months. And now we say it's 3 days. So the Gemara says, Agolim, Usyachim, Agolim, Usyachim, like Kasha. That's not shver. Hodireya. If you have pasture land, so then you can keep it for 3 months. Hodipituma, if you're fattening it up to slaughter it, it's 30 days. Avozim Tarnagolim, Avozim Tarnagolim, it's also not shver. Nami like Kasha. Habaravave, Habazutre. One is talking about big ones. One is talking about geese and chicken that are big. And Habazutre, the big ones that eat a lot, you only have to care for them 3 days. The one that says 30 days, that refers to small ones, which you're expected to keep 30 days. We're going to stop over here, Rabbi Isai. And now, we will not pass go. We will not collect $200. We will go straight to the Chumash here.